You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. All right, we got some big Trump news. Now, this is something that's been rumored about in the past few weeks. And now we've got some details that show that it is happening. And this is an article out of the New York Post. Donald Trump is preparing to leave the exclusive relationship with his own social media platform.
Oh my gosh, I knew it.
Truth Social, as part of an eventual return to mainstream sites like Twitter and Facebook. President Trump is gearing up to campaign, obviously, to get the Republican nomination in 2024. He's been telling confidants he's eagerly anticipating. See, this is an interesting thing. We just got some new information, and
Where is this article?
New York Post, and I believe this to be true because
Absolutely.
the next line, the way it's worded, and it is a detail we have not had. Trump, who is gearing up to campaign for the Republican nomination for president in 2024, has been telling confidants he is eagerly anticipating the expiration of a social media exclusivity term with Truth Social.
I didn't know that. So they were right when Howie Kurtz said months ago that it was a contractual thing. So he owns the company, and he also signed an exclusivity.
He's part owner, and
yeah, he's got to be on Twitter to run.
We have more information. So he's anticipating the expiration of the social media exclusivity term that he has with Truth Social, and what they're saying here is it is up in June.
Oh, okay.
So, so this is exciting stuff.
So you guys, MAGA, get back on Twitter.
Get back on
Twitter.
The exclusivity term for Truth Social requires Trump to first channel any and all social media communications to Truth Social 6 hours before posting the same content to other platforms.
Wow.
Okay, and this, by the way, was shown in the Security Exchange Commission filings with the company. The exclusivity deal exempts posts, the content of which specifically relates to political messaging, political fundraising, or get out the vote efforts. Trump has been telling those close to him for months that he has no appetite to renew the exclusivity clause once it expires in June. So this is amazing. Now, Trump on Twitter right now has 87.7 million followers. And I'll tell you,
I think that'll hit 100 million.
Oh, yeah. Since Elon Musk took over Twitter and reinstated all these people like President Trump and Loomer and all these others that were banned, conservatives have taken over Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot. You go through the Twitter feed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's not liberals there. Obviously, there's liberals there. But Twitter is being dominated when it comes to news and political discussion by conservatives. Because, I mean, you get things in your feed that aren't just what you follow. So, all of these other platforms, Getter, Parler, Truth Social.
They're just never,
the thing with...
can never reach that level.
No,
Twitter.
The thing with social media, and I know a lot of people say, well, I'm on everything and I'm on most people, including myself, don't have time. I'm on Getter and Parler. I haven't signed on Parler in over a year.
Oh, I deleted the app.
Yeah,
Getter.
At Getter, I have the app, and I might put something up there occasionally. The only reason I'm on Truth Social, and I am on Truth Social too, is because President Trump is there. But you want to go out and proselytize. You can't speak to the choir only,
no.
and Truth Social is probably 90+% MAGA.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but you can't just have
Brian,
people that already agree. We got it. For President Trump to be part of the dialogue fully again, he has to be on Twitter.
He only has not even 5 million followers on Truth. He has almost 90. on Twitter. That's a huge, huge difference.
He'll go to 100 million overnight.
It's not just that.
When he starts tweeting.
When he's on Twitter, he will dominate the conversation. He will dominate the news cycle, just like before.
It's got to be on Twitter.
When you have 90 million followers and you're retweeting things and commenting, the media will not be able to ignore you. He will once again drive the news cycle. He will direct the conversation. He does not have that kind of power on Truth. I like Truth, and I get a few followers every day, and there's a lot of good articles on there that I put in your Facebook group. But it is not the same thing as Twitter. And come June, he will be on Twitter, and everybody in MAGA should be on it. It's got a new owner. It's not the same as it used to be. There's a lot more freedom there. So it's just a different animal of these days. And Trump's going to be on it. And he comments on everything. He'll be extremely active and definitely get on it between now and June.
Listen, there's a lot of things going on here. The rallies are going to start up again.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if he's going to wait to get on Twitter to start all that.
Here's the thing, okay? The television news are not going to cover the rallies. He's got a blackout on the mainstream news. Newsmax, which has gotten a little too mainstream, just isn't going to cut it, okay? And One American News, nobody has that anymore. And I know I'll get comments, I have the app. Well, you're the one. I mean, it's not a large enough reach. He's got to reach the masses.
Yeah.
And what he can do with Twitter is he can stream his rallies through Twitter, which is reaching almost 90 million already. He'll hit 100 million.
And Elon Musk will let him do whatever he wants.
And think about what
good for business.
And think about what he can do on the Twitter Spaces conversations. Those are big with big people like Musk does them sometimes and others. I
told you, as I said on yesterday's show, this campaign I'm predicting is going to be bigger than the last two, because Trump has, I don't want to say something to prove, but he has scores to settle. Yeah. And he didn't have that going in before with the first two campaigns. And I don't mean that in a vicious way, but kind of. Trump has a lot to resolve. He wants to finish what he started. And he kind of was left the office with with all these great things. And I know he had a lot more and then the COVID, derailed everything for a good 2 years, year and a half. I know there's so much more he wants to do. And he wants that. He wants to have his last 4 years to finish his plan for the country and to get it set on the right direction. If he can be in the office again for 4 more years and then have a successor for 8 more years to solidify a lot of the things he did.
16 years of Trump that way.
It's got to be so frustrating when you do all these amazing things for the country. I mean, think about it. All the people that had jobs and the low rate of gas, the low rate of inflation. Mm-hmm. And then some boob comes along and screws everything up and reverses everything. Eggs now, I've seen so many stories about it on the news. I've been talking about the price of eggs for weeks. Eggs now at our grocery store, the kind of eggs I buy, I can no longer buy. I like to get the free range eggs.
Oh, forget about
They're
it.
$9.50 a dozen. So now I buy the regular Publix brand, which are still $6.50. They're not cheap. Eggs used to be $2.50 under Trump, $2.50, $3. Which is reasonable. But now, I like the free range eggs.
Yeah.
They're $10. It's nuts. A lot of people are complaining about, because eggs have always been a very low cost source of protein. Eggs, beans, peanut butter. Those have always been lower cost sources of protein if you can't afford steaks and all this stuff or meats. And now even eggs people can't afford. Can you imagine? It's incredible.
Well, yeah.
But he's got scores to settle for sure. And I think it'll be a much bigger campaign.
I know a lot of people will say, "Well, we're never going to go back." And if you one of the things Donald Trump did a lot of things, but one of the things he did that no other Republican has been able to do is command the news cycle. He controlled the news cycle. Absolutely. He controlled the dialogue, and you can't do that with a handful of people. So, I mean, let's just look. Okay, so on Twitter right now, he has the 87 point whatever million. Let me go to his Truth Social and see what President Trump has on Truth Social. I mean, I'm one of the followers there, and I know a lot of you guys are. On Truth Social, he has 4.84 million. So he has like 80 million more people, over 80 million more people on Twitter. He's got to go to that. Every time he puts out a tweet or shows a rally on there or does a Twitter space, he's reaching more people than the cable news at night combined.
Absolutely. Oh, much more. I mean, much more.
You know what I would do if I was President Trump? This is what I would do. When I went back to Twitter, I would do a weekly address to the nation where he had like a TV set, and he sat there and he talked about the things that were going on in the news that particular week, his thoughts on them, what he would do about it, and maybe do a town hall every week. Mm-hmm. Not just the rallies, but I mean like a real town hall, stream it wherever he streams it, and also put it up on Twitter and reach all these people. And he really has the ability to make the mainstream media irrelevant. And I know a lot of you will say, well, it's already irrelevant. I don't watch it. Well, that's because you're self-centered and think everything's about, you look up and the sun's above your head. So, the sun revolves around you. Most people still get their news and information from the mainstream media. Yeah. And that's,
it'll be interesting.
And he could break them with this.
Well, of course, they're going to say, get ready for this. They're all going to come out and say another failed business adventure, Truth Social failed and all this stuff. I wouldn't call it a failure, but I think that I don't think Trump ever thought he'd be back on Twitter. And if he ever thought he'd be back on Twitter, he never would have gone into this, ever. He would have waited it out. But nobody saw Elon Musk coming along and taking the reins of Twitter, so I'm not going to fault him for that. And not everything everybody does turns to gold and works out. I mean, life is full of successes and failures for everybody. Mm-hmm. But the media likes to highlight, of course, his supposed failures and all this stuff. But, I don't look at it that way. It's not easy to start a company like that, a social media platform, and it is doing well. It's downloaded all the time, and it's very active. I'm sure he'll be on both, but he won't have the exclusivity. But I'm sure he'll do both. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. So June is always February, March, April, May, 5 months away. I wonder when he's going to kick things up with his campaign, when that's going to happen. But
I would imagine over the summer. That's when
over the summer.
That's when the first one began.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you were talking about the egg prices.
Yes.
Coincidentally, I had this story here, and this is from the Border Patrol. They call this the Biden effect. We saw this with baby formula a while back.
That's right.
Egg prices are so high that Americans are driving to Mexico to buy eggs and then bring them back home. Egg prices in Tijuana are $3 a dozen. A dozen in California are around $8 a dozen. So,
isn't that illegal to bring food across a border?
Well, they're kind of,
I thought, animal products. I thought that was illegal. You can't come in from other countries with
that's
food
why
and stuff.
That's why it's coming out of the Border Patrol. It's smuggling.
Yeah,
you can't do it. They're like sneaking them in.
Wow.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah, it's really bad. I know, it's really bad.
That's how bad it is.
What's going now? I read that part of there's the bird flu going on, and some other things happen.
Everything's inflation. The prices of everything.
But I think a lot of it has to do with inflation.
Eggs. When I told you when I was in high school, I worked at Publix, which is the big grocery store chain in Florida. I know it's in other states, but it's started in Florida.
Yeah, it's the main Florida store.
Yeah. And the guys that delivered the eggs, they brought the eggs in on semi-trucks. And these guys, this was like the 80s. They had regulations, but things weren't computerized yet. They were just in log books. Like they wrote down things in. And these guys drove 100 hours a week with the eggs. And it's a big job delivering eggs.
God.
It's not.
I would imagine. I wonder if they get penalized if they break and stuff.
Oh, sure. I bet if they break enough, it's a lot. Gas prices are higher. They're by trucks and they're refrigerated, right? Because they got to be cool. There's a lot that goes in so the egg prices are high, not because of these things, but because of the Biden inflation effect that trickles down, rising the cost of it. And that's just the way it is. And you know what? Biden doesn't care.
Eggs are I'm looking at Walmart because, Walmart's traditionally less expensive. A dozen eggs, this is Walmart brand, $4.86. So that's probably the cheapest. They do have cage-free for $4.98. And farmhouse eggs, $7.50. Eggland's, which everybody knows, that's a pretty good deal, $3.66. That's a good deal at Walmart. So, Eggs are better. They have pasture raised, farm raised eggs, $5.97. Yeah. They're better at Walmart than Publix.
I don't get all this.
I've seen some for $9.50.
I don't get all this cruelty-free stuff. They treat them nice and they cut their heads off.
No.
I mean,
I like free range because what they do with the chickens is they put them in a cage where they literally cannot move, and they can move their head. I've seen videos; it's awful. And all they do is eat and lay eggs. That's it. They can't walk.
Yeah,
they can't. The cage is a tiny, tiny little cage that holds their body. It's very cruel. And I typically only buy free range eggs because those are chickens that can walk around and just lay eggs while they're walking around. And they're supposed to be better for you anyway. They don't pump full of hormones. So
yeah,
I like to buy, I'm not into I like to buy organic as much as possible, like vegetables and stuff. But I usually buy frozen vegetables, frozen fruit and things like that for smoothies and stuff. Because sometimes that stuff goes bad so quickly. But with meats and stuff, I do like to get meats that has like I get Perdue. It's a little more money, but there's no hormones or antibiotics or anything. So I do take care of that because some meats and stuff, they do add a lot of stuff to them. You got to be careful. You pay a little more for that. But the eggs are a big, big problem right now, which have always been a cheap source of protein.
David Crosby just died, right, in his 80s?
Yeah.
That guy was overweight his whole life, did every drug known to man. He lived to be in his 80s. Yeah. So I don't know about eating some hormone-free eggs is going to prolong anyone's life.
A lot of that is genetics. Your grandfather smoked and lived into his 90s.
Yeah.
And then there's people that smoke and get cancer in their 40s. So
that's true.
So much. I have a cousin, my cousin Debbie. She was my step cousin, and cancer runs in her family. And she died at 41 years old. She and I were the same age. And it was very sad. And you and I saw her at the mall right before she died. She looked like a 90-year-old woman. I couldn't believe what it done to her body. She flew all over the world to try to fight it. Her husband took her to Germany. They tried. She was like the guy from Taxi, trying all these, and Steve McQueen, trying all these modern techniques to try to beat it. She had a very aggressive form of cancer. It was a genetic thing. She had many people in her family. Yeah. So, and then other people, like you said, can eat meat and smoke and drink.
Exactly.
Keith Richards, and they never dropped it.
Exactly. And look, Johnny Depp, he's like 112, but he looks like it.
Oh, they say he drinks a lot.
Now, so you guys, let us know in the comments about your thoughts on Trump returning to Twitter. And if Trump goes to Twitter, will you stop using Getter? I can't imagine anyone's on Parler anymore. No. Getter and Truth.
And also let us know how much eggs cost where you live.
Oh my gosh.
I'm curious. How much are a dozen eggs that you normally buy? Because that's a grocery that everybody buys every week. Eggs, milk, bread. So you know what it costs, or ask your spouse if they do the shopping. How much are eggs in your local grocery store, the brand you get?
Now, I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for their support of the program. Your support helps us out a lot, and it is greatly appreciated. Our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you shout-out on each and every podcast episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Rick, Nick, Wesley, Macho, Rome, Wisconsin, Maria, Paulette, Carlos, Dave, and we're welcoming a new top Patreon supporter, Mike P. You know who you are, Mike P. Thank you all. And if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the episode description and also a direct link on my website, BrianCraigShow.com. We'll be right back. If you're looking for a beautiful way to enhance your home decor, look to Textiles by J. Purr Blockhouse. At J. Purr Blockhouse, you will find handmade textiles that are truly stunning. They offer soft quilts, cushions, and shams. Experience the ultimate luxury and comfort with these fabulous bedding collections. They use only organic cotton that's very soft with chemical-free dyes. That's perfect for the living room, bedroom, your kids' room, or your guest room. You can transform the look of your bed with these hand-embroidered quilts, cushions, and shams. Find these gorgeous bedding items on Etsy at J. Purr Blockhouse. That's JAIPURBLOC House. On Instagram at J. Purr Blockhouse, or visit their website, jpurrblockhouse.com.
Want to know where all the bodies are buried? Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool. Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob. Welcome to Mob-Ammy Beach. This book is a fictionalized account of Miltenberg working at a mob-owned Miami Beach hotel in the 70s. If you're a fan of The Godfather, Goodfellas, or The Sopranos, you will love this story that's full of colorful characters and wisecracking wise guys. It's a story with everything from Playboy bunnies and weaponized parrots to shattering the glass ceiling and getting away with murder, all in paradise. This is a wise guy tale you've never heard. Surrounded by pools, the trick for Bobby Moskowitz was not slipping in the one thicker than water. Bobby lived to tell the tales, and now you can read all about it. The funniest mob novel since Jimmy Breslin's The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool, from author Robert Allen Miltenberg, available on Amazon. Order your copy right now. Add some warmth and personality to your home with a throw blanket from Throw Blanket Wall Art. Throw blankets make it easy to add the cozy finishing touches to your home decor. Throw blankets from Throw Blanket Wall Art are made of 100% high-quality cotton. They're made to order, carefully woven, and shipped straight to your doorstep. When you visit their online store at throwblanketwallart.com, browse their selection of beautiful throw blankets, like their best-selling botanical woven throw blanket, their boho floral throw blankets, butterfly and cat blankets, and many more stunning designs and patterns. Every blanket is extra durable and machine washable. You can use them as an outdoor throw on your patio, a wall tapestry, a couch throw, or bedspread. They're good as a beach or picnic blanket too. It's up to you. Throw blankets are a fun and stylish way to stay comfortable, and they make the perfect thoughtful gift for someone special in your life. Home is where your blanket is. Shop the gorgeous throw blankets from Throw Blanket Wall Art. Visit throwblanketwallart.com to order yours right now. throwblanketwallart.com.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Now, we are very blessed in Florida. President Trump lives here. Matt Gaetz lives here. And Ron DeSantis is our governor. And he has a press conference pretty much every day in Florida. And today he brought up something that's a little different, but I think it's a good thing. Listen.
To myself, why are these kids on their phones during class all the time? I mean, I think a school district would be totally within their rights to say, you know what, leave your phone in some cubby or something. Yep. Go sit in class, learn, and then if you get it at recess and you want to text people, fine. But they should not be always on their phones being distracted from the lessons. And so I think that our school boards will be able to lean in on some stuff, too, to buttress what we're doing. And I look forward to being able to do that.
Okay, now this is a great, what he's going to do, and you could tell because when you follow Ron DeSantis, he'll say something like this, and then people like us will start talking about it, and then some wokesters will start getting upset about it, and then he'll just do it. And he's going to ban kids from having cell phones in school.
Absolutely do it.
And I know what the left are going to say about that, which I'll tell you in a second. But when
I know what you're going to say.
We were in school, people, we didn't have cell phones unless you were some Wall Street hedge fund guy like Michael Douglas on Wall Street. Yeah,
those were in the car.
But some kids had beepers. I didn't have a beeper.
Yeah, they were usually the drug dealers.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of drug dealers at my school. I went to a very rough school. There were real drug dealers, crack dealers. The only reason they were in school is because they were out on probation, and if they didn't stay in school, they'd get sent to jail.
The people that had beepers were doctors or drug dealers.
Yeah.
That's what they used to say.
But they were very strict on beepers.
Absolutely.
and what happened is the teacher would take them and hold it for the day.
That's right.
And then at the end of the day, they'd give it back. And, the cell phones in school, it's not just that it's a distraction. There's certainly that. But the phones are used by the students as a weapon of intimidation.
Absolutely.
And teachers, a lot of this woke stuff you see in the classrooms, a lot of it is there are a lot of woke teachers, and that's all true. But a lot of teachers are not woke but they act like they're woke because if they don't, they get recorded on a kid's phone.
That's true.
They're
closeted conservatives.
Yeah, that's right. They're up on TikTok and then they're done.
I would not. I used to teach. I would not want to be a teacher now. And
well, you had a job offer at a school that you took, and then you turned it down because they had a live camera in the classroom all the time.
That's right. I
remember
when I was teaching, BlackBerries had just come in. Okay,
yeah.
So there were no like smartphones.
And I had one. I had a BlackBerry.
I did too. And there were no, but they couldn't record.
No.
And I remember starting to have an issue with students taking their phones out. Now, the way my school, I tried to do a thing where I hung up a thing on when the kids walked in and they would put their phone in there. The problem with these things is the implementation and the enforcement of it, and the kids just wouldn't do it. And I spent literally half the period fighting them on the phones. So what I did, I came up with an idea, which worked for me at the time because I taught middle school. It was very hard to keep these kids' attention. So I would have the work for the day, and this worked for the kids. And I would tell them, if you finish your work for the day, completely finish and turn it in, you can sit on your phone quietly. And that was how I handled it. And maybe that wasn't the best strategy. But the problem is with teachers is you are constantly fighting these kids. So the only way to do it is to ban phones completely off campus, is to have it where phones are not allowed with students. But I know what you're going to say about why they need them. They'll say this. But that the only way to really legitimately make it so the teachers can actually teach, because it is a serious problem. And I can't tell you how many articles I read where there's spelling errors, grammatical errors. And I used to teach English, so I know all about that stuff. People are stupid now, the young people. They don't know how to spell or write or anything. And but the only way to really make that stick is if you banned phones completely from the school, where they couldn't even be allowed on campus, or they would be immediately. But Brian, they don't even enforce this dress code, because you know why? When you enforce the dress code, this is how it is these days. Say you have a student, and I dealt with this 15, 20 years ago when I was teaching. Say you have a student, and it's usually a girl, always, never the boys, who is dressed inappropriately. You send her to the office. You know what happens? You get a phone call from the principal because the parents are pissed off at you now. Yeah. And the parents are bitching to the principal that you picked on their daughter. I'm not joking. So it's not worth it. Then you have to say to yourself, is it really worth the aggravation that I'm going to deal with to tell this girl to change her clothes?
What the left will say, because Ron DeSantis is for something, they got to be against it,
exactly.
Right? So they'll say, well, if there's a mass shooting event.
That's exactly
Because
right.
like in Uvalde, the kids called the 911. Remember?
A lot of good that did.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Now, I want to play this audio. I played this on the radio today, and I usually don't like to play things on the podcast that I played on the radio in the morning. But a lot of people were really shocked by this. You didn't hear this, Kathy. You weren't listening when this morning. You slept in today.
Yeah, well, I was
shame on you.
up late.
Yeah, I know. Plus, I woke you up.
You woke me up in the middle of the night.
2 a.m. I woke up and
I was so mad at you.
Something happened, and I woke Kathy up.
It took me forever to fall asleep because I was had a bad headache. I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
I finally fell asleep.
And I woke you up.
Brian woke me up 2 hours later.
Yeah, but so you slept in. But this is very important for me to play, because it is one of the most revealing things about the Democrats. Something we've said about Democrats forever, and it's been proven true. It's Robert Reich, who's not only a Democrat, he was the Secretary of Labor under President Clinton. And he's a short little guy and almost a dwarf. And when Bill Clinton was president, somebody had built a scaled replica dollhouse of the White House and donated it to the White House. And President Clinton came in and he's looking at this dollhouse of the perfect replica, every room of the White House. And this was on television. And Bill Clinton says, oh, Robert Reich could sleep in here in this room.
Oh, my. That sounds like something Trump would say.
Isn't that hilarious?
That's pretty bad.
That was crazy. And he was laughing after he said, oh my goodness, they did not. But Robert Reich is a real nasty guy. He was Secretary of Labor. He thinks he's an economist. And he's not an economist. He's never had a job, right? He went to college, became a college professor, worked for the government, became a college professor, but he thinks he knows everything. And he's talking about the negative effects with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And it's like listening to a modern day Nazi.
Let me hear this.
And instead of Jews, he talks about black people and people of color. But we'll go through this, and this is not just some casual conversation. This is a political video he made that was done in a professional television studio with a film crew. It's scripted and everything else, and it's very high production quality, and they put it out there online. So a lot of thought went into this sickness. Listen to this.
Abortion bans are not pro-life. They're pro-poverty and pro-inequality. I'll tell you what we can do about it in a moment, but first let me explain how these bans worsen inequalities. You've probably heard of the 2 abortion cases making their way through the courts. But it's not just Texas and Mississippi's new bans. For years, Republican state lawmakers, almost entirely white men.
And that's the thing that really, like white men are not supposed to have a voice on anything.
Not anymore.
He's a white man.
Exactly.
But it's okay.
But we're supposed to listen to him.
Yeah. But he has the right voice, right? Because it's a liberal voice. So that's okay. Yeah. So let's go back here.
Bans. For years, Republican state lawmakers, almost entirely white men, have been chipping away at reproductive freedom, enacting laws that lead to clinic closures, force people to travel hundreds of miles for abortions, and create near insurmountable barriers for low-income people, especially people of color.
Okay. People of color is code word for black people.
Exactly. Because all people of color are poor.
Yeah, so I'm going to play the rest of this, but what he's really advocating for are for black people to be able to have more abortions.
Yeah. It's like Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, he really is, yeah. Or Adolf Eichmann.
Surmountable barriers for low-income people, especially people of color. Now, make no mistake, bans like those in Texas and Mississippi won't stop abortions. Wealthier people will always have access, but millions of low-income people will be forced to give birth, with dire consequences for both parent and child. Pregnant people in Texas now have to travel.
Okay, now that's the other thing.
You know that
it's not pregnant women; it's pregnant people.
Exactly.
Because men can be pregnant now.
Exactly. Well, the way the liberals talk about black people, it
gets worse.
No different than how they used to talk about them when they owned them as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
They refer to them as less than, and they talk about them in those kind of terms. How they're just not in a good light at all.
No.
For both parent and child. Pregnant people in Texas now have to travel an average of 247 miles to get an abortion. Who but wealthier people can afford this? Only 1/3 of the lowest paid workers receive paid sick days, while 95% of day off from a low-wage job can mean sacrificing groceries, electricity, or gas. These restrictions worsen inequality and have lifelong effects. One study found that being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy to term makes it nearly 4 times more likely that parent and child will live below the poverty line.
Okay. So you got a better chance of living below the poverty line if you're born poor, but you have 100% possibility of not being born if you're aborted. So is it better to be aborted and not be born, or live in poverty?
Parents are also less likely to have full-time work and more likely to have public assistance 4 years later. Decades of research confirm that abortion access improves education, employment, and earnings. And the differences are especially large for black people. It's not just economics. Restricting abortion puts people's health at risk. Researchers found that abortion legalization in the 1970s reduced deaths among black mothers by 30 to 40%. The Supreme Court's right-wing majority is poised to gut or even...
Okay, now this is just insane. I mean, and I didn't play all the audio on the radio this morning. I'm going to play all of it now. This is a commercial by a leading top white male Democrat, using their terminology, Robert Reich, Bill Clinton, Secretary of Labor. The whole purpose of this is to try to get black women to have more abortions.
Yeah.
Robert Reich thinks there's too many black babies being born.
21 states already have laws that will go into effect to severely restrict or outright ban all abortions immediately, threatening the livelihoods and health of millions of low-income Americans. Congress must codify Roe v. Wade in a federal law.
This is the new word now, codify.
Yeah, codify means
You hear that all the time now.
Pass a law, make it part of a code regulation.
It's already been passed in the House, but it's being blocked in the Senate by, you guessed it,
a Republican majority. No, we're not at the majority. It's a Democrat Senate, so they should be able to pass it. Okay.
Pro-life about forced pregnancy and forced
that's the new
birth.
term, forced
The freedom
pregnancy.
to choose when, how, and with whom you start a family should not be dictated by your income or where you live. Congress must act to protect reproductive freedom now, before it's too late.
Before more black babies are born, Robert Reich? What a racist
it is. It's amazing.
thing, this guy. I mean, it's insane.
Everybody knows how you have babies. Okay, if you're having sex, you know that a baby can happen. These people act like you just spontaneously get pregnant.
Yeah,
and then you got to deal with it. No, there's things involved that make it happen. 99.9% of the time, you have a choice, and you can make a decision before to use one of the many forms of birth control. I know there's exceptions with incest and rape. I understand that, but out of the incest and rapes that occur, how many result in a pregnancy? Some, I understand that. I'm not speaking of those instances. I'm speaking of the 98% of people. In fact, I remember Abby Johnson, who's a big pro-life person.
We had her on the podcast.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood. She said 98% of abortions are from women who had consensual sex that were adults.
Yeah.
And she said the incest and rapes are so minuscule. So those 98%, they know what it takes. They know why they're pregnant and how it happens. Mm-hmm. How come there's zero talk of being responsible before you get pregnant and making decisions and understanding the responsibility involved?
This thing with Robert Reich, okay? Let me tell you, this is the most racist thing that a mainstream Democrat has said since the end of the civil rights movement.
Seems like he's really focusing on the black community.
There's too many poor black people,
exactly,
and abortion is a way to control that population. This is the way the Democrat segregation is talked.
Yes,
and being born poor and black, being born poor in anything is not fun. But you don't hear him talk about
poor white people,
poor Hispanic,
because
poor
to
Asian.
Them, being poor and black is the worst thing you could be.
It's poor and black. It's only poor and black. And this guy here is talking just like a Nazi. Just change black or person of color to Jew.
I agree.
And it sounds like what it is. Robert Reich here, it sounds like the Third Reich is what it sounds like. And what's crazy to me is that so much production went into this to get it out there. And all these liberal wokesters around, it never occurred to them, wait a minute, this guy's sounding like the Third Reich, Robert Reich.
Because the liberals all think like him. So I have a crazy story real quick. That John Carlo guy on Fox, his nephew, got shot in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
I have two stories I wanted to say real quick. So Gianno Caldwell blasts restaurant for kicking him out over his political views. So you guys know he's the black guy on Fox. His nephew was killed in a drive-by in Chicago a few months ago. He said on Saturday morning, Fox News' Gianno Caldwell was asked to leave a restaurant in Miami because his conservative views don't align with the opinions of the owners. The restaurant Paradise Books and Bread posted on their public Instagram account with a caption that alluded to Gianno and his group, stating that their behavior and their words made other folks in the space, as well as the one of us working, very uncomfortable. They must have been discussing politics. So now he said, this reminds me of when Martin Luther King said in 1963, a very simple truth. He said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So this is what he tweeted. I can't believe what just happened. I met up with friends for breakfast at Paradise Books and Bread in North Miami. And while we were having discussions about politics, we were told by the owner we were not welcome there, because our politics don't align with theirs. That's crazy.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I saw that story this morning. I don't know. Miami's a pretty liberal place.
I don't know. They just voted red for DeSantis.
Well, yeah, but the areas where you go and go out to dinner and stuff are very liberal. They're like artsy districts, and it's it's not safe to go in those parts of Miami with MAGA gear on.
He's not a Miami guy. He didn't know.
And I remember there was a Ted Cruz campaign worker who was brutally assaulted in Miami because he had Ted Cruz.
I think it's ridiculous.
Or not Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio.
You cannot refuse service to somebody. Now, if it's like some places require shirts and shoes and clothes, obviously that's a health issue. But you cannot discriminate against people. Now, people say, well, what about the bakery people?
Yeah.
Bakery people do not refuse to sell cakes. They refuse to make specialty cakes for certain things, but they will sell you a cake out of their shop. They will serve you, sell you donuts and say you can take a regular cake, but if they don't want to personally make a certain themed cake against their beliefs, and that is their right as a cake artist. But when you own a restaurant, is it even legal? I guess as a proprietor, can you just throw people out because they're sitting there? Okay, say you and I were out to eat with friends, and usually when we go out, we discuss politics a lot of times. And say we were sitting there getting ready to order, and the owner came over and you were wearing your Trump hat or talking about politics, and it was obvious you were a conservative, or they recognized you, and they said, "I'm sorry, you have to leave because you are a conservative and you make us uncomfortable."
Yeah.
What would you do?
Well, I wouldn't want to eat the food in a restaurant like that. I wouldn't trust them to give me the food. And
that's true. So they're doing you a favor.
Yeah. No, I would do what he did. I would.
And then go on social media.
I'd go on social media.
Go on the radio.
And I would tell people about it.
Isn't that sad? It's really sad.
This one story, I saw this story today.
Yeah, this is nuts.
Aretha Franklin's song Natural Woman is deemed offensive to trans people. They're trying to get it taken off of all the streaming sites.
I heard that song the other day, and I was thinking that like trans people would hate
I don't know how real that is. There's something you got to be careful of, okay? The gays have lost a ton, or the Democrats have lost a ton of gays to the MAGA, to the Republican movement. And as a group, gay people do very, very well because they don't have children. For most people.
You mean financially?
They do well financially because they don't have children.
Overall, true.
And gays as a group they make more money and they have more money because they don't have kids. Are our biggest, even our daughter as an adult is our biggest expense is our daughter.
For sure. Not that we're complaining.
No, but it's true.
That's how it is when you have kids.
It's true.
It's not like having a dog. Sorry.
No, so
dogs don't cost thousands of dollars.
So now, we're several years into gays having total equality. All of the goals of the gay rights movement has been achieved, and then so what's happened now is they got gay marriage and everything, so they don't like paying taxes to freeloaders and things like this. So they tend to become more Republican gays because of the financial bracket they're in. Most gays are upper class, upper middle class, things like this, wealthy. And because
this is from the trans community,
let me
think
so a
is
lot
more
of these
radicalized.
A lot of these
gay.
stories, a lot of these stories are about the trans are out there just to get conservatives talking negatively about trans, and then it goes into gay people.
It's like a bait.
It's bait to try to do something to get gays to come back home to the Democrat Party.
Right.
And this thing with
so they pick an issue like being mad at Aretha Franklin's song.
Which is total BS.
Well, the reason that's in the news now, I think, is Carole King wrote that song, and she just got a Kennedy honor, and Aretha Franklin played it for her. She plays the piano. I didn't know that, and she played the piano, and she's amazing, and she sang that song. Sounds great, and that was all over the internet. Her performing for Carole King. I guess she wrote that. She was a great songwriter in the 70s, and that's a great song. It's an iconic song. I remember it being on a commercial in the 80s. And maybe it's some group, some obscure trans
this
group
is what
in Sweden.
I mean, listen to this.
But they want the song banned now.
Leading the charge to have Aretha Franklin, who's an American icon, song nixed from all the streaming sites is Norway-based the Transcultural Mindfulness Alliance.
And that's her most famous song. That in Respect, I think.
A group that just formed this year. I mean, who? So this could be a guy with a Twitter account.
Yeah, exactly.
And he posts this up there, and
could be like a couple people.
Yeah, that could be like me saying,
like Fred Phelps.
I'm with the MAGA Alliance of Mindfulness, and and
it becomes a big story in the Daily Mail.
it is bait to get us distracted and start doing what would be considered gay bashing.
But I agree with you. But the problem is,
and so they can say to the gays, "Look at these MAGA people."
This is how things get banned. So they write about it in the Daily Mail, right? Because the Daily Mail, they're good, but sometimes they write stupid articles.
It's a tabloid,
and it is. Most London-based newspapers are tabloids anyway. But they write this article, and next thing you know, somebody's that'll pick up steam, and somebody will say, "Yeah, that needs to be banned because the song offends trans people and all this stuff." But yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so I wouldn't fall for these trans things all the time. I mean, there's sometimes you got to get involved, like when they have basically a strip show for children. I mean, that's
another thing they're doing to get a rise out of conservatives.
That's exactly right.
And I said that before, that they're realizing that they don't have much to fight about anymore.
That's right.
So they're creating something, and these drag shows are part of that. They're creating things to get Christians all upset and have a new thing to fight for, and a new cause.
Yeah. So listen, we're going to take our last break. There's another big update on Biden's classified document scandal. There's a major update every day. We got a new one we're going to get into when we get back. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll be back right after this.
Get ready for an unforgiving dystopian science fiction ride with thrills and surprises. Author Tyler Drinkard brings you a suspenseful science fiction novella, Isolated Domain. Stolen uranium, a partner on the run, and one dark secret. Hare has stolen imported goods for as long as he can remember. It wasn't the most honest living, but in the Conurb, where amenities are scarce, there wasn't much opportunity for honest work. Everything was going smoothly, and Hare kept a low profile until his partner suddenly decided to steal something priceless for himself. Join Hare on an action-packed epic journey as he desperately tries to find his partner while navigating a world full of uncovered secrets. Isolated Domain is a heart-pounding, immersive sci-fi adventure and will have you hooked from the very first page to the last. Isolated Domain from author Tyler Drinkard is available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover editions. Order your copy on isolateddomain.com or visit Amazon to grab your copy right now. Isolated Domain from author Tyler Drinkard. Add some wealthy wisdom and energy to your podcast playlist. Join Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell and her podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth. Each episode dives deep into the money memories of your neighbors, friends, and many famous names. Jennifer interviews guests about how their past money memories molded their future relationship with finances as an adult. You'll listen to the wins and the losses as guests discuss financial infidelities and learn from the stories of those who have been in the same position as you. New episodes are released weekly. Start the year with positive, wealth-attracting energy. Tune into Platinum Talks Wealth, hosted by Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Parents and grandparents, there's a thoughtful bedtime story that you will want to add to your child's reading list. From author John Clay, The Invisible Trap, an illustrated children's story about being aware of your emotions. The Invisible Trap is an allegorical story of a child who leaves the safety and comfort of home. Soon, he's overwhelmed by his new reality. Realizing he's all alone, he has to overcome his big emotions and gain clarity. This is a fantastic book to introduce children to the lifelong lesson of being aware and comfortable with emotions. The Invisible Trap is the effect that limiting beliefs have on our ability to function. This beautifully illustrated children's book embraces integrated psychological leadership theory and will help your child learn emotional intelligence as early as possible. Order your copy right now from author John Clay, The Invisible Trap, available in Kindle, hardcover, and paperback on Amazon.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And don't forget, go to mypillow.com, buy something with our promo code Kane, Kane. It's a great way to support all the content that I am connected to, right? The podcast here with Kathy, my YouTube channel, the Steve Kane radio show. When you use our promo code Kane, you're supporting all of that. and of course, Mike Lindell.
Plus, you get a great product.
Oh, well,
The best.
you can take advantage of all of the specials you see at MyPillow.com, not just the ones I talk about, but I share what I consider to be, my
Personal recommendations.
ideas of what the best
I love
deals
the
are
towels.
and everything else.
Towels are amazing.
The towels are spectacular, and you can actually get a 6-piece MyPillow towel set for just $49.99. But for Valentine's Day,
Yeah,
with
they're
our promo
amazing.
code Kane, I wanted to talk about the MyPillow My Slippers. The MyPillow My Slippers, they just updated the site just a few minutes ago.
Oh,
The MyPillow My Slippers are being offered for $100 off.
oh my Lord.
Just $49.98. Now, MyPillow My Slippers, we paid the $150 for. You
That's
can now
right.
get them for $49.98, and cool.
That is a deal.
Yeah,
And it's the same slippers, just as good a quality.
Well, yeah, and they got a whole bunch of new colors and a whole bunch of new sizes. They have smaller sizes, for people with smaller feet and children. But they also have larger sizes, the big sizes for men, wide sizes that they didn't
or
have
some
before.
women.
Yeah. I said women and people with
No,
smaller
you said
feet.
big sizes for men.
No,
Some
that
women.
a lot of guys have asked me, do they have the big, wide?
Yeah.
And now, well, they do now. And they have a whole bunch of new sizes, both large, wide, and smaller.
That's great.
A whole bunch of new colors, and they're $100 off, just $49.98.
I'm gonna have to get a pair. That is one thing I don't have are the slippers for myself.
Yeah, you
so
gotta get
I'm
them.
gonna have to order a pair.
And that's with the promo code Kane at checkout, Kane. Another great Valentine's Day gift at MyPillow, the MyPillow bathrobes, which huge discount on those too. They're just $59.98, and that's in all the different colors, the robes for men and women, and both the light and the heavy robes. And of course, for all of these specials, you use our promo code at checkout, Kane, Kane, for amazing savings. And of course, Mike Lindell spoke at Diamond and Silk's
Yeah.
Memorial,
Yeah,
where President Trump was
good.
at over the weekend, which was just an amazing work. So let me get to this update on Biden. It's being reported in multiple sources now that in this new batch, well, I should say stash, this new stash of classified documents.
Yeah, I like the word stash instead of batch. That's more appropriate.
Yeah. This new stash of illegal documents they found over the weekend. Some of these classified documents go back to when he was in the Senate, and I'd been talking about this. You were talking about this.
Yeah, I talked about that the other day.
Biden has been taking classified documents since he's had access to them. And going back to the Senate, that's a long time. And this is kind of like, people wonder, does anyone wonder how someone like Joe Biden, whose entire life is dedicated to public service, owns beach houses and mansions and all these fancy vets and everything?
You got to
I mean,
ask
come on.
yourself. I am really, really curious. We can all have our theories. I am really curious who is behind this because there is
Obama,
a
I'm telling you, it's
reason.
Obama.
Well, that's my theory, but there is a reason all of this is being exposed now. And it's being exposed right around the time he was going to announce he was running. That is not a coincidence. And I really want to know. Now, Brian Kilmeade had a crazy theory, which my mom came over and told us, which I don't necessarily think this is true, but he had somebody on his show, I guess his radio show, and he said that the reason that they're exposing Biden is because they want to use it as a reason that he and Trump cannot run again in 2024 because they're going to use this taking of classified documents as an excuse. The problem with that is Trump can declassify documents, which he did as president. Biden cannot. And I don't know if there's any
Well, he
laws
can
about
now,
that.
but he couldn't
Well,
when he was
not
vice
the ones
president.
he took.
No.
And Brian, God knows what he's taking now. What is he taking now that he's president? And what if they find stuff that he took last year, 6 months ago? Have they found anything recently?
Okay, here's
There's
what...
got to
okay.
be some stuff.
The media,
Check all his houses.
we do not have any investigative journalists that are investigating this.
No.
They're all just being handed the stories. And, I've talked a lot about this. Woodward and Bernstein were not investigative journalists either. Everything was handed to them by the FBI. Okay? They did not go out and investigate that whole thing.
Woodward had a friend.
Yeah, everything
from
you see in the
college.
movie
Yeah.
is all fake, okay? What you read in the book is all fake. They were given everything. So they really are not investigative journalists. But what I'm curious about, and no one in the press has gotten to this, and I hope that they do, we have documents going back to when he was in the Senate.
Yep.
What I would like to know is a timeline of the documents based on how sensitive they are.
I want to know what's
because as you get up, well, they're classified. We'll never truly know. But as you move up higher in the government, you have a higher security clearance.
That's right.
So my guess is the stuff from the Senate is not as sensitive as the stuff as vice president.
True.
And when he's got this house and office packed with documents that they stole, you think he stopped doing that when he was president, or did he escalate when he had access to everything?
Let me ask you this. When you're vice president, you don't have access to as much as the president, I'm assuming.
Well, you get the presidential daily briefing.
Yeah, but do you have, but there have got to be documents that Obama got that he did not get. Classified documents that were privy to Obama. I'd like to know if any of these documents were for Obama's eyes only. And did he somehow get a hold of them? Did he steal them from Obama? You know what I'm saying? Are any of these documents in there?
When Roosevelt was president is when they started the A-bomb, right? Testing and everything.
Yeah.
Truman did not know about the atomic bomb until Roosevelt died. And he found out the day he became president.
There you go.
They didn't tell Truman.
So I'm wondering if any of these documents were privy only to Obama's eyes. You know what I mean? And then Joe Biden got a hold of them. That to me is really bad.
This is what,
and I'm sure Obama would like to know.
This is what I think. Okay, the documents. I think he started doing this as soon as he had access to classified documents back in the 70s.
We said that a couple of shows ago.
And I think this is the largest intelligence spy operation in the history of this country, and it's very dangerous because when someone does something like this, after you do it the first time, they got you because they could turn you in and you go to prison. You understand what I mean? So now he's got a lot of immunity because he's a president of the United States, right? When he was doing this as a senator, he was doing this. Remember they had 70s, early 80s, they had that AB scam where they had the undercover FBI guys acting like they were Arabs and they were blackmailing members of Congress. McCain was wrapped up in that sting. They have documents from when he was a senator. I'd like to know when. When he was a senator, he didn't have this immunity from prosecution that he has now. And I know a lot of people say, well, what do you mean? He's just because he's president, he can't have. They're not going to put any president in jail unless their name is Trump.
No.
Okay.
Plus,
so what I'm telling you is
that's true.
The level of risk that he had been taking when he was a senator is serious business. When he was vice president, it wasn't as much of a risk because if he
more protection.
He got more protection because if he went down, Obama would be in trouble too.
The senator is more likely to end up in jail.
Correct.
Over this.
Yes.
Here's another thing.
Yes.
If he was taking documents and selling information in these documents, what about recorded phone conversations? What else was he taking and selling to people? What about other documents?
Well,
letters,
this is one we know a little bit.
Emails, text messages, transcriptions.
Well, this is
what
one thing
other
we know,
information
Kathy.
was he selling to people?
This story,
other than just these.
The story we were talking about over the weekend.
Yeah.
When this woman, Kathy Chung, got the phone numbers from the Clintons, the Obama, all these people. And when the CCP or whoever they were giving them to, I think CCP because her name was Chung, when they got the phone numbers, that means a lot of things, okay? It means not only do they get all the information that's on the phone and they got a listening device, but there's also cameras on all those phones. And they can use it as a way to get blackmail material
That's what I'm saying.
on all of these elected officials. So what he did, he may not have had access to whatever secrets are in Area 51 to pick something extreme and crazy. But what he did with those phone numbers that he allowed them to smuggle out, which are all confidential information, including one of an FBI director and some Secret Service, he allowed them to put together a spy network operation against top officials in the government. And even because they not only, if these intelligence agencies are in your phone and your phone is off, they can still listen to you and they can still see you with your camera. They have so much like this. One of the phone numbers they gave was Nancy Pelosi's cell phone number.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi had this exorcism done at her house, right? She had this exorcism done at her house.
Ridiculous.
Not because this guy broke in, but because her husband is involved in devil-like behaviors in that home, and she wanted it cleansed of that. She could not be in a home that had in it the demons that her husband brought in there.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
One of the cell phone numbers they had was Nancy Pelosi. That means every conversation Pelosi has had in private, wherever her phone was, who is the CCP, probably because the woman's name is Chung, heard all of that and have it. Plus, she always, I've seen her. She always has the latest iPhones, and she has for years. So they got a camera. So everything that was said or done has been heard and
we
seen.
know your
think about this, Kathy. Think about this. I don't want to lose this point. Everything that Nancy Pelosi has said in private where her phone is at, they have recordings of it, even if her phone was off, and they may have video of it. And you look at everybody knows what we think of Paul Pelosi. I don't have to tell you, with this guy coming in and 2 a.m. and all this stuff. Imagine the blackmail material they have on people like Nancy Pelosi that have these. She has demons in her life, and by her own admission, because she had an exorcism done at her house in San Francisco. That is apparent. And Joe Biden allowed this blackmail operation to be put in place by giving them the information. I mean, this is really bad stuff.
I think this goes really deep.
Oh, yeah.
Deeper than anyone could ever imagine. And like I said, him keeping documents, there's a reason he did that. I'm assuming he was selling information or giving access. And like I mentioned, what else was he giving access to? Was he recording phone conversations? Would he have a conversation with a group of senators and then turn around and make a phone call?
Like Steven Crowder with the guy from the Daily Wire recorded the conversation.
And make a phone call to some Chinese person or have a person where, this needs to be looked into deeply. It needs to be investigated. I'm waiting for them for the House to launch an investigation. And I don't care if the guy goes to, obviously that's not going to happen. You're not going to put a president, but it needs to be exposed and brought to light. And people need to know. I think it's clear to say that Joe's political future's done. Okay, whether he resigns or finishes his term,
he's 180, Kathy.
Well, I know, but he was planning on announcing his run again.
That's right.
That's not going to happen anymore. That's not going to happen.
That's right.
Because they're going to use this as leverage to get him to step down completely now or in 2 years. They want him out. He's a disaster. He's unpredictable, uncontrollable, and he's corrupt. And they want somebody in that's younger, fresher, that's going to play the game. They want I'm not saying he's going to win. They want a Buttigieg type. Somebody who is a complete swamp creature that will do whatever he is told for power. A puppet. That's what they want. And Joe, I'm not saying he's not, but he's got his own agenda going on, apparently, that has nothing to do with politics in that sense. He's got his own thing going on. And he's not as controllable as
he's
they
an
thought.
Asset for someone. He's an asset.
Right.
For a foreign government.
He's a problem. But a Pete Buttigieg type who could never win, but somebody like that is completely controllable by Obama and whoever the powers that be are. He will do whatever he has to do to have power and have that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they want Biden out of there. So one way or another, he's done. That's it.
Now, one last thing I want to mention before we go. And a lot of you will think this is a minor thing, but I don't care. I want to mention this. You may have heard at Disney World, both American Disney parks, Disney World here in Florida and Disneyland in California, they're getting rid of the Splash Mountain ride. And Splash Mountain has been there since the early 80s. Princess Diana and Prince Harry, and then wrote.
Themed now from the Song of the South.
It's based on Song of the South.
Rabbit.
And I'm in shock that they ever built that ride because Song of the South, which I saw in the movie theater, not during its original theatrical run, but they used to release movies in the theater that were old and
Disney movies for sure.
And I saw a double feature when I was a kid. My dad took me to the movies. It was 101 Dalmatians and Song of the South. And
It's a good movie.
Song of the South is a very good movie.
Got Hattie McDaniel. It's a great
movie. And Disney years ago banished that movie.
Yeah, because they're slaves. The main character, Uncle Remus.
Oh, he's a happy slave.
And Hattie McDaniel.
Yeah, he's a happy slave.
Yeah, they're slaves. Obviously, we know slavery is a bad thing. And slaves were not happy. Overall, I'm sure they were enslaved.
But Kathy,
but this
Uncle
is a
Remus,
movie.
Uncle Remus is singing to cartoon birds. It's not real.
I mean, exactly.
It's a fantasy.
It's a movie. It's not
fantasy.
real. It's not real.
But the thing about it is this. Okay, so here's what's going on. So they closed down Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World, which is based on Song of the South because of the racism, and it's being
rethemed.
Yes, it's being rethemed to a ride to make it more culturally sensitive to Tiana, who's from the movie The Princess and the Frog,
which is my favorite movie,
and she is the first Black Disney princess.
Yeah,
and
it's a great movie.
They got rid of this ride. I mean, if they're really woke, shouldn't the Black Princess get her own ride, not just some retheming of the Song of the South ride, Splash Mountain? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
Some people can make the argument that it's because it was based on a movie dealing with slavery that now the ride is turned into a ride about a black woman. They can't give her own ride. It's kind of, people are going to make the argument that it's showing how things have evolved. And look, it doesn't bother me. I personally don't like the story of Brer Rabbit. I remember watching that when I was a kid and it scared me. I didn't like it.
The Tar Baby, where that comes from. Where that comes from is the Democrats are really terrible people, okay?
That's for sure.
And Democrats enslaved black people. Republicans did not. We freed the slaves. And one of the things that the Democrat slave owners did, all the slave owners were Democrats, all the plantation owners were Democrats. They would put tar on the fences.
That's right.
So that if anyone climbed the fence or touched the fence around the field where they were working, you can't get tar off, right?
No,
you know how hard it is to get tar off.
They would know.
And we have modern cleaning things. And oftentimes it was for the children, the slave children. That's where the Tar Baby comes from. It comes from getting the thing. So I mean, it's a real thing, and it's a terrible thing, and it's nothing to make light of.
No, I was really surprised they did that ride based on that in the first. I was shocked, to be honest with you.
I am too.
I thought this is pretty controversial, and I do like the movie, but I don't like I said, I don't like the Brer Rabbit elements and all that. I never liked that as a kid. It always made me uncomfortable with the Tar Baby and all that. But now it's being themed for Tiana, who is my favorite princess. I'm excited, but Disney is having problems. We watched this movie last night that did horrible Strange Worlds. We just thought, let's see what it's about. And Strange World, it was a horrible.
We heard
movie.
It was very woke, so I said, well, let's watch it.
It's very woke. Oh my gosh.
Let's watch it.
It's all about utopia, sustainability. You have all these gay characters, which is whatever. I don't care, but everybody's okay with it and cool. And, you got the biracial couple and all this stuff.
Well,
it's like covers every, I'm surprised there wasn't, now they'd make it with a trans person.
When we watched this, I couldn't believe the main character, his son has his first crush, and the son's first crush is on a boy.
That's right.
Who dresses like a girl.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. He's kind of trans looking. And the son is black. The father's white. And you're right. The son has a crush on a guy who looks trans. You're right.
Yeah.
So they cover that.
Yeah. They got all the check boxes.
And then all
the one check box they didn't get was story. There's no story. They just got all these woke things in there.
That's the one thing missing. But it's a boring movie. It's awful because these young people don't know how to write movies. And what they do is they go into the room when they're writing a script or when they're working on it, and they have all these issues they want to touch on. And the story is way, way down at the bottom of the totem pole. That comes much later. They don't start with a story or an idea. What they start is, well, I want to make a gay character who is in love with another gay character who looks like a chick, and the father's white and this and that, and we need an Asian and a Spanish and this and that. That's what they focus on now when they write stuff. And then the story is the last thing they think about. And then they decide, okay, how can I make a story that encompasses all these ideas? How can I make a story revolve
not only
around
this, okay.
And they always suck.
So the main character, he's got the son who's got his first crush. It's on a trans boy. They got this whole green energy BS thing going on.
Yeah.
And
very liberal.
And then their country is run by a woman. And then they have to go on this combat mission on this military ship, and the captain of the military is a woman. It's
stupid.
Just too woke.
It's boring.
Not that women can't lead nations or captain, but you can't have a woman in every masculine situation. Like they're on this ship and it gets attacked. So the women, not the men, fight off the enemy.
But what's
while the men
interesting,
hide,
though,
it's very
is
woke.
the women that were leading, like you said, were very masculine.
Yeah.
They're not feminine.
No, they're gay.
So
they were gay.
Yeah. So what is that saying? That women have to be masculine to be leaders?
And it was a funny thing because one of the storylines, the main character and his dad and the dad was a famous explorer, and they kept talking about their family legacy.
Yeah.
And since their son is gay, the legacy is over because he's not going to reproduce.
That's exactly right. They kept talking about the family legacy, and I
how can it continue if he's not going to
legacy because their son's gay and he's into guys, and they
that wear girls'
these days
clothes.
guys can have babies.
No, not these guys. They can't. Well, anyway, we're out of time.
On that note,
but we'll be back next time. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Talk to you next time.